Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Godly Play this morning. I'm so glad to be with all of you today. This morning, we're going to continue hearing some of the stories of the great family that God promised Abraham and his descendants. Last week, Miss Madeline told us the story of Jacob, and this week we're going to hear the story of his son, Joseph. Is everybody ready? The great family grew. Jacob had 12 sons. His favorite was Joseph, and he gave Joseph a coat made of many beautiful colors. And this made Joseph's brothers jealous and angry. One day, Joseph had a dream. And in his dream, he and his brothers were picking wheat in the field, when all of a sudden, the wheat and his brothers began to bow down to Joseph. When Joseph told his brothers about this dream, they were very angry, and they wondered if it meant that Joseph would be the leader over all of them. A while later, Joseph had another dream. In this dream, the sun and the moon and the stars also bowed down to Joseph. When he told his brothers and his father about this dream, they became very angry. And they wondered if it meant that even their father and mother would bow down to Joseph. One day, while his brothers were in the field tending to the sheep, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers. And as they saw him coming, they decided that they were going to kill him. But the oldest brother, Reuben, talked them out of it. Instead, they stripped Joseph of his coat and threw him in a pit. A while later, some merchants came along, and they decided to sell Joseph to them for 12 silver coins. They dipped his colorful coat in goat's blood, brought it back to their father Jacob, and told him that Joseph had been killed by a wild beast. Jacob was very sad, and he wept. Eventually, Joseph was sold to the general of the Pharaoh's army. Now, the wife of the general had Joseph thrown into jail because Joseph stayed close to God and God stayed close to Joseph. While he was in jail, Joseph met some of Pharaoh's slaves. And they had dreams, and Joseph told them what the dreams meant. After the slaves were released from jail and went back to Pharaoh, they heard that Pharaoh had been having dreams too and didn't understand what they meant. And so they told Pharaoh about Joseph. The Pharaoh called Joseph to him and told Joseph about his dreams. He had 2 different dreams. In the first dream, there were 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows. And the skinny cows ate the fat cows. In the second dream, there were 7 beautiful ears of corn and 7 skinny ears of corn. And the skinny ears of corn ate the big fat ears of corn. Joseph told Pharaoh that this meant that there would be 7 years of good harvest and 7 years of bad harvest, and that Pharaoh should stock up on the good years so that he would have enough to feed the people during the 7 years of famine. And so Pharaoh did just that. He put Joseph in charge of gathering up the extra grain and harvest and storing it so that they would have food during the bad years. Now, it wasn't just Pharaoh and the Egyptians that had 7 years of famine and bad harvest, but also the surrounding areas, including the areas where Jacob and his other sons were living. And so Jacob sent his sons to Pharaoh to ask for grain to feed their family. And when the brothers came, Joseph recognized them, but they did not recognize him. And so they bowed down and asked for his mercy and for grain. Joseph gave them grain and held on to one brother, and the rest went back to Jacob. When they all returned, Joseph told his brothers who he was. And he said that God had sent him before them so that he could feed them and keep them safe. So Joseph and his brothers and his father Jacob lived in Egypt for many, many years. And when Jacob died, Joseph and his brothers took him back to his homeland to be buried. And they then returned to Egypt to live. Many years later, Joseph, his brothers, and their descendants would become slaves to the Pharaoh. For the new Pharaoh had forgotten all that Joseph had done for the Egyptians. And that is the story of Joseph. I'm going to put the story away. But as I do, I want you to think about the story, and I'm going to ask you some questions in a couple of moments.